I don't like to paint things pretty. I do like to be honest on the show and allow people into the vulnerability of the experience of both infertility and adoption, because a lot of times we do see that go hand in hand. So, can you speak into that and maybe just some words of encouragement from your experience related to both of those?
Yeah, because it's part of my job, do you mind if I share a poem?
Please.
Okay. Usually during shows that I do, there comes a point in the show where I talk about what we're talking about, the adoption, the waiting, the wondering, the grief that comes along with it.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to write a poem that kind of captures all of that. It's called "You Cannot Make God Hurry Up," and it goes like this:
Hmm.
You cannot make God hurry up. He holds time in his hands, and his timing is perfect. But according to my watch, he's late. I
Yeah.
didn't choose the life I have, and the life I have isn't half bad, but I'm far from feeling whole, like there's a chip or crack somewhere in my soul. Dreams are disappearing as my reality is being reshaped. Grief and shame have found their way into the center frame. Breaks in my foundation have shifted what has come to be, but I know something more is happening than I can see. But right now, what I see is life slipping away from me. And I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm not the only one who's tossing and turning at night, wondering if everything will be all right, asking God questions, beginning with when and why. I know I'm not the only one who's tired of feeling stuck or behind, like I'm standing in the wrong line, but I also know God is never far off. He's in the waiting. He's in the wondering. He is before me and behind, just like he's in the here and now, and he will be with us in the then and there. God is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, and you cannot make God hurry up. He does things differently. He's not punishing us or pushing us away, but he's right here staying the same, inviting us to trust and wait. You cannot make God hurry up, but you can join him in the certain and slow, and God is slow until he isn't. So those are my thoughts kind of around,
Mm.
what do you do when you wait? Well, the hard answer is to trust.
Yeah.
But I also think part of the, like, what do you do while you wait is you can lament, you can pray, certainly
Yeah.
pray, and you can be frustrated. I mean, my I have a friend who's a therapist. We all have friends who are therapists. I have a friend
Right.
who's a therapist, like a legit one. But she's like you can hold more than one emotion at a time. And for the
Yeah.
longest time, I thought I could only be happy, I could only be sad, only first. But like we are complex people, and we can hold there are a lot of things going on in us at once, and we don't have to stop that from happening,
Yeah.
but we can ground them in the understanding that there's a lot going on, yet God is still faithful. Life is still hard. I am hopeful, but I am hurting. I am waiting, I am trusting, I am frustrated, I am hope. We can be all these things at one time. And it gets hard. Hope is
Yeah.
a hard thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's a hard
Yeah.
thing.
It absolutely is. Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm taken aback by just the honesty and all of that, and I'm recognizing all of the feelings that you expressed just through that poem, and remembering my own moments of just collapsing on the kitchen floor and crying out because the waiting was so exhausting,
Yeah.
and the wondering, and then on the other side of the fulfillment of that adoption, the crying out in my closet and shaking my fist at God because I was so frustrated at how hard it
Hmm.
was. And so
Yeah.
I really appreciate you talking about that. And I think it is important for us to recognize that God created us as beings to carry all of these emotions. He created all the feels, if
Yeah.
you will. And so it doesn't have to be any set rule of how we
Hmm.
feel those and express those. And so I think that is important. And you make that crucial point of it all comes back to us talking to
Yeah.
God, that it's
Yeah.
not that our focus still stays with him as we're going through all the feels. And so, what does that look like, Tanner? Talking to God through, and what did that look like for you, for your wife, and how would you encourage even just the basic conversation with God as you're walking through the hard related to adoption or infertility?
Yeah. I think, you know, we, when I look back on the years of waiting and the frustration and being told, you're not going to be able to have kids
Mm,
the way that you thought that you were going to have kids. It's like you said, like there's just a lot of emotions. But when it comes to praying, I always used to think that prayer was just like you fold your hands and you bow your head and you close your eyes and you talk to God. And
Yeah.
yes, that is prayer. Uh, but for me, during those long seasons of grief, it often looked like going for a walk and listening. It often looked like an honest exhale. It sounded like praying something very short. Just, God help, amen, or God, I don't know, amen.
Yeah.
All of those very honest prayers, very short. Um, but I just gave God what I had. And sometimes I didn't have the words. Often when we talk about prayer, we talk about when you pray, you just give what you have. You don't
Right.
have to make yourself up for God. He already sees you for who you are. You
That's
don't
right.
have to stifle those emotions. He gave them to you. But, and I also just learned to ask for really, really big things. I was just praying the most bold prayers I could. Every day I would pray that. I would pray for our birth family. For the birth family, I would pray for our child that they would be happy and healthy and that they would know the Lord. And I prayed that God would help us to be ready and to be dependent on him. Like that was all and I just kept praying that over and over again. Um, yeah. And then I think the biggest thing through it all. And I still do this when I don't know what to pray. I ask my friends if they would pray for me
Yeah.
because I there were times where I was so sad that I didn't want to talk to anybody, let alone God.
Right.
But I did want I knew where I needed to go,
Mm.
and I knew I couldn't take myself there,
Yeah.
even though I was already like in the hand of God, like what I'm saying.
Right.
But I think, and then inviting your friends, your people, your community into the thing that you are praying is a very loving thing to do. It is not a selfish thing to do. It is a very loving thing to do.
That's a great point.
Um, and so that's what that, and I'm still praying those big prayers. I'm still praying
Yeah.
all those things. And it just looks a little bit different now. Um, but it wasn't the time wasted. It wasn't a waste of time.
That's right.
I know that for sure.